Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I am Jigyasa, welcoming you to the session on e-invoicing for the businesses having turnover above 20 crore. Over the 2 decades, Webtel has been India's one of the leading e-compliance solutions company, well known for its compliance management, office management, and HR management solutions. We believe in delivering our best to clients through our expertise and dedicated professionalism. We have incorporated a Knowledge Academy as well, where you can do all of your learnings by opting for self-paced courses, staying in line with the blogs, and keeping pace with webinars, etc. Despite having a long history of providing simplified solutions to help our clients, communities, and network-facing compliance challenges, we dare ourselves constantly to anticipate, plan, and execute in order to simplify the ever-changing world of compliances. Our products and services have covered it all for your proficiencies in compliance, virtual, HRMS, SAP, company law, and outsourcing solutions. We have reached greater heights in providing legal and regulatory compliance management solutions, even in the invoice as ASP GSP provider, empaneled with goods and services tax network and develop desktop-based applications with advanced facilities for e-filing, e-reporting, auto-updating of laws, enterprise resource planning, payroll, etc. Today, we are presenting a webinar on e-invoicing for the businesses having turnover above 20 crores, presented by Mr. Rajiv Khandelwal. Mr. Rajiv Khandelwal is a fellow chartered accountant of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He is also DISA, ICAI, a certified systems auditor. He is also an alumnus of Sri Ram College of Commerce, SRCC. He has over 3 decades of experience in the compliance sector. Mr. Khandelwal ji has addressed over thousands of webinars and seminars so far on compliances at NASSCOM, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, Institute of Company Secretaries of India, Institute of Cost and Works Accountants of India, and various study circles, etc. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them into the chat box. We will take the same at the end of the webinar. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Mr. Rajiv Khandelwal. Sir, please.
Thank you, Jigyasa. And very good afternoon or good evening to the participants. And as you are aware, today's session is very important because now the threshold for e-invoicing has still been lowered, and many of the new clients will be under the e-invoicing regime, and we have to understand the nitty-gritties of e-invoicing. And so let us begin right away.
Yes, sir.
So, first of all, what is an e-invoice? Obviously, you are aware, in short, it is electronic invoice, and the short form for that is e-invoice. And already it's there in many countries, and many countries are still implementing it. Like in Saudi Arabia, also it is being implemented, and in other Middle East companies, it is being implemented or already implemented in many other countries all over the world. And in India, it's a phased implementation, as you're aware. And initially, it began with people having turnover above 500 crores, then 100 crores, then 50 crores. And now even people having turnover above 20 crores will be covered under e-invoicing. And it's not that something new will happen. You will continue to generate invoices from your accounting softwares, from your ERPs, as you were doing earlier. But something different will happen, that now you will have to upload the data of the invoice on the government portal in electronic format. So that is the difference which will be there. And another thing, important thing for this will be the benefit for business, that it will be a standard invoice readable by other softwares. As of now, you are aware that whenever we buy various goods and services, we have to manually punch these invoices in our software, whether we are using Tally, Busy, or other accounting packages or ERPs also. In most of them, we are punching this data. But now this e-invoice data, it will, since it's in a standard format, it will be readable by all these accounting softwares, all these ERP packages. So even the punching of invoices will not be required. So a lot of effort saving will be there, a lot of time saving will be there, and chances of mistakes will be less. And obviously the updation of sales and purchase invoices will take place on the portal. And as I said, no data entry errors, etc. And automatically with this data, e-waybill can also be generated if the entire information has been given, or at least part A can be generated and part B can be generated later on. And it will also help in smooth input tax credit reconciliation. And obviously, there are a lot of benefits for the business and also benefits for government. So what are these benefits? It will result in real-time reporting for the government. Government will get the data of the invoices just almost in real time. It will help in system level matching of ITC and the output tax. And it will also have a complete trail of B2B invoices, because as of now, only B2B invoices are being uploaded. B2C invoices are in this phase, not uploaded at the government portal. And one of the biggest problems in GST is fake invoices. And so many times we see in the newspaper, there are press releases from the government that they have caught somebody with fake invoices, and ITC of 100 crores, 200 crores was being claimed, and all those kind of things. So it will help in that also. And as you're aware that this notification number 13 of 2020 came on 21st March 2020, and from time to time it is being modified. And in the latest notification number 1 of 24th February, this limit of e-invoicing turnover has been lowered to 20 crores. So when we talk about the applicable turnover, which we have to see the turnover, the aggregate turnover. And this aggregate turnover we have to see for any year from 17-18 onwards. If the turnover in any of these years exceeds the limit of 20 crores, that in that case, e-invoicing will be applicable from the next year. So in 2022-23, e-invoicing will be applicable if your turnover exceeds 20 crores, even in just 1 year. Later on, it may have reduced, but even in that case, you will have to comply with the e-invoice provisions. And when we talk about turnover, we are talking about aggregate turnover. That is, it includes all taxable supplies, exempt supplies, exports of goods or services, interstate supplies, and these supplies are of person having the same permanent account number and to be computed on an all India basis. And obviously, this does not include the taxes, etc. So what does that mean? So let us take a practical example or a case scenario wherein the person has 2 GST registrations in Delhi. The turnover of one GST is 6 crore, of the other is 4 crores, total 10 crores. So if we see the Delhi registration, invoicing is not applicable from the next year. When we see the Maharashtra GST turnover, it is 2 crores. Obviously, it's below the limit, so it's not applicable. And when we see the West Bengal turnover, it is 20 crores. So is it applicable? E-invoicing applicable in this case? If we talk about West Bengal only, even then it is not applicable because it has to exceed 20 crores. But when we talk about this company X as a whole, the turnover is 32 crores. And we have to see the turnover of the entire company. So if it exceeds 32 crores, it means it's exceeding 20 crores. And therefore, e-invoicing is applicable and applicable to all the registrations of this company having the same permanent account number. Even if turnover is nil, even if turnover is 2 crores, even 20 lakhs, In that case, invoicing will become applicable. Whether it should be the turnover as per profit and loss account. Okay, first, can somebody answer in the chat box? Which turnover are we talking about? Is it the turnover as per the profit and loss account? Or some other turnover? Some adjustments have to be made to that. So obviously the branch transfers have to be added, though it is between the different units of the same company, but even these branch transfers are to be added in the turnover. Similarly, yes, turnover as per whole, it is as per GST, absolutely right. Exempt, non-taxable, all these kind of turnovers are to be considered for seeing this limit. B2C invoices, that is invoices to consumers, non-registered persons as per GST, they have to be issued in the normal manner. No e-invoices are to be issued in these cases. You have to issue invoices as you are issuing as of now. Reverse charge invoices can be of two types, B2B and B2C. So B2B invoices of reverse charge, they are covered under e-invoicing. B2C invoices are not covered. So let us summarize a few things, important things. So this e-invoicing will be applicable to B2B invoices, and with effect from 1st April 2022. Data will, in the data of invoice, will have to be uploaded at the invoice registration portal. We'll be talking in greater detail about this portal. IRN or invoice registration number will be applicable. QR code will be applicable. And QR code, you do not have to generate. It will be generated from the invoice registration portal, and it will be mandatory to print this QR code on the printed invoice also. A few sectors have been made exempt by the government from e-invoicing, like the transportation sector, GTAs, aviation sector, passenger transport, multiplexes, why this notification. Then also banks, insurance companies, special economic zones, NBFCs, and even OIDBAR, that is Online Information Database Access and Retrieval. In all these cases, the government has exempt them from e-invoicing, so they can continue to issue invoices as they've been issuing till now, till a further notification comes to also include them in e-invoicing regime. So what is the brief process in this case? Let us try and understand. Generation of e-invoice by the supplier from the ERP or the accounts. Then upload of e-invoice at the invoice registration portal. Generation of unique IRN or the invoice registration number and QR code at the IRP. E-invoice data with IRN and QR code being provided to the supplier, and e-invoice data will be given to the GST Common Portal and the e-Waybill portal. This is in brief the process of e-invoicing. A few important fields, let us see, or first of all, let us see to which documents it's applicable. I think PPT screen is visible. Somebody is saying that PPT screen is not visible. There might be some problem with.
It's visible.
So please check up your screen. To which document it is applicable? It is applicable to invoice. It is applicable to debit note, credit note, and any other specified document. So no other document as of now has been specified. So when we talk about other type of documents like input service distributor or ISD invoice debit credit note, e-invoicing is not applicable to that. So e-invoicing is applicable to all invoices, debit notes and credit notes, which are issued for B2B cases. What about delivery challan, bill of supply and job work? Again, these are not to be uploaded at the portal. You can issue them as you are issuing. If like from one branch to the other branch, you are selling within the state through a delivery challan. In that case, you can continue to issue delivery challan as you are issuing now. There is no need of an e-invoice. The format of the e-invoice, even that has been notified by the government in 2020. And from time to time, changes are being made in that also. If in brief we want to see, some of these fields are mandatory, some are optional, like these fields we will see in the next slide. These fields like GSTN of supplier, GSTN of buyer, quantity, etc. These are the mandatory fields, some of the mandatory fields, and other fields like phone number of the buyer and trade name of supplier, vendor PO reference number, etc. These are optional fields. Quantity is a mandatory field. Obviously, that's in the case of goods. In the case of services, you can put in a 0. The maximum number of items that can be given in the invoice, that's a huge number, 1,000 invoices. 1,000 items can be there in the invoice. So that's a huge number. I think nobody will have a problem with that. But in the e-way bill, only 250 items come. So why this mismatch? The government has clarified that the top 250 items in value, they will be going from the e-invoice to the e-way bill. Normally, invoice also is less than 250 items. So all the items would be coming in the e-way bill. But if the number of items is larger than 250 items, then the top items in value will be going in the e-way bill. There's a question from Vijay Khatri. If we generate e-way bill on delivery challan, how I can generate e-invoice? As I told you, in the case of delivery challan, e-invoice is not to be generated. It has to be generated in the case of invoice, debit note, and credit note also. IRN, whether is to be generated on the same day, not necessary. You may make a physical invoice today, and later on you can issue an you can upload the data. You will get an IRN. That way you have to do it, and it's not necessary that on the same day IRN should be generated. And this e-invoice is to be generated in electronic format, and this is the JSON format in which our income tax returns are also being uploaded these days. Earlier it was the XML format, but now even the income tax department is taking the ITRs in JSON format. The same format is being used for e-invoice also. Invoice registration portal. So the government has already started one portal, and in the times to come, it says it will come out with more portals like these. This portal, which is already up and running, and already the so much of invoices are being made from that portal, being uploaded on that portal, downloaded from that portal, but no problems are being faced. But if need be, the government will be coming out with other portals also, similar portals. So, but as of now, we have just one portal where this information can be uploaded. Akash, can you please share the YouTube link on the chat box? Somebody is asking for that. Just a minute.
Yes, sir.
So the portal is already live, and already from last 2 years, people are uploading the invoices, and now you have to do that. So invoice registration portal, you will get a login to that, and if you have already registration, everybody is registered already in the e-way bill portal. Same user ID password can be used here also, and there if you log in, all these options are there. The user management, the e-invoice, various options, API registration, etc. These are technical things, but once this will have to be done by you, if you are using softwares like Tally, Busy, etc., And if there is end-to-end registration by Webtel, then all these things will be taken care by us for you. And changing the password, etc., updation of data, all these options are there. And how many invoices have been generated yesterday during this month, or how many have been cancelled, all this information is there on the dashboard. And there is data validation at the portal. Before the data is being uploaded, this validation is there of the unique invoice number. One bill or one invoice can be uploaded only once. If you try to upload the same invoice number again, obviously an error will be thrown up. And the GSTIN of the buyer, GSTIN of the seller should be correct. It should be active. Then only it will accept that invoice. And it will obviously reject or wrong, deleted or cancelled GSTINs. And there are several other things, like if the HSN code is invalid, if the IRN is duplicate, the same invoice number, if the total invoice value is not correct, all these kind of errors are there. If these are there, then an error will be thrown and the information of the invoice will not be uploaded at the portal. You will have to first correct that, then only it will be uploaded. So what will happen at the portal, invoice registration portal? The invoice will be registered, IRN will be generated, QR code will be generated, and invoice validation will take place after this process. And there will be no registration without all the mandatory fields in the e-invoice. If one of the important mandatory fields is left out, or any mandatory field for that matter is left out, in that case, this invoice will not be registered at the portal. You'll have to first correct that. So IRN request and response, how that will happen, let us see that. What all will happen? You'll have to make a request technically, or the software, not you, I mean the software, whatever ERP software or the accounting software that you are using, will make an IRN request to the portal, to the e-invoice system. And there, after everything is valid, an IRN will be generated. That will be the number. I'll be just talking about that. E-bill number will be generated. If part B data is also there, you will get a signed QR code and you will get a signed invoice. So all these things you will receive once your IRN request has been received, accepted, and validated. And simultaneously, updation will take place at the e-bill portal, GSTR1 of the supplier, and GSTR 2A or 2B of the buyer. All these things will take place simultaneously. Now, you may also want to understand, there we have, I think on the chat, we are getting some queries on date of IRN and whether it can be uploaded later on generated. I'll just take those in a while. Let me first finish with the basic presentation, then I'll take these queries. So what is the basis of IRN? It is the GSTIN of the supplier, the financial year, the invoice type, whether it is invoice, credit note or debit note, and the document number, that is the invoice number, etc. So for example, in this case, the IRN will be generated from this, this plus this plus this plus this. So whether this is the IRN, any answers on the chat box? What we are seeing on the screen, is this the IRN? Let's try it, make it a little interactive. So please reply to what I'm asking. Is this the IRN? Ijaz is saying, yes, sir, it is IRN. Anybody else? If you've already started doing e-invoicing. Yes, others are also saying this is IRN, but actually this is not the IRN. This is not the IRN. This is the basis of the IRN. So a hashing process, a computerized process, a technical process will take place on this number, and then you will get the IRN. IRN will be something like this, which you can now see on the screen. A 64-bit number. How many of you can memorize this number and put it in Tally or Busy or some other accounting software? How many of you can memorize it? It's simple. isn't it? I think none of us can do it, and we have to depend on technology for that. Yeah, absolutely. And this is the unique identity of the invoice. This number will be unique for each invoice. And this obviously IRN, this number, this 64-digit number is to be stored in the ERP or Tally or Busy. And obviously, we will take the help of technology for doing it. And as I said, we will get a signed invoice in JSON format. This will be, I think, jumbled data, which will not be readable by the naked eye. And we can use this decryption facilities being offered by the department. And this is how the invoice will look like. When you can try and read it, like you can see the data acknowledgement number and other things, PIN code, etc. All these things, you can, all the contents of the invoice are there in this format. And the signed invoice also, it will look like this. And again, it can be decrypted and we can read this invoice. No tampering is to take place once you have got the data from the portal. Once you have got a signed e-invoice from the portal, you cannot make any changes in that. Even if you try to put a comma or a full stop, it will be invalid. So please don't try to do that. And obviously, there's a system at the portal, the e-invoice portal. There you can go, and when you get an e-invoice from one of your vendors or the e-invoices you send to your parties, they can go upload this JSON file and find out whether this is valid e-invoice or not. Like this, once it is uploaded, then all these details will be there, and you can find out whether it is a valid e-invoice or not. Now comes another important thing, the QR code or the quick response code, and it has legal validity also. Section 40, Rule 46, Subrule R states that e-invoice should contain quick reference code having embedded IRN in it. This is why notification number 72 of 30th September 2020. And obviously, I think every single thing that we are buying these days and various even visiting cards at this QR code through which the data can be read. So QR codes are becoming very common these days. And very important data of invoices there in the QR code, the unique IRN, invoice reference number, the invoice data, and the digital signature of the portal. All these things are in the QR code. It is a proof of receipt of invoice at the portal and acceptance by the IRP. If you want to know again, this QR code will be signed and it can be decrypted and we can read all this data, seller GSTIN, buyer GSTIN, etc., etc. And what all information the QR code contains, let us try and find out. The GSTIN of the seller, the GSTIN of the buyer, invoice number, gross tax, taxable value, invoice date, invoice value, number of items, and HSN of the main item. The item of having the maximum value in the invoice, HSN of that item, and IRN. All this information can be scanned through the QR code, and you can get all this information from there. And there are various mobile apps also through which you can read this data. And the department is also giving this facility. For iOS, I tried, but it was not working. For Android, I think it is available. You can check on this portal, e-invoice portal. This facility is there. You can try and download this app, and this will help you read this data. And this is how the data can be read of the QR code. The data at the portal will remain only for 24 hours. Thereafter, this data will be transferred to a central registry. Regarding amendment of e-invoice, that is not possible. at the invoice registration portal. At the GST portal, common portal, it can be done in the usual way that you make amendments there. It can be done there. So if you want to make changes, what is the time period in which you can make changes and where you can make the changes? So cancellation of e-invoice, if you want to do, it can be done within 24 hours at the invoice registration portal. You will get exactly 24 hours to cancel the e-invoice. Beyond 24 hours, since I told you the data is removed from the portal, there is no option to cancel it at the portal. From 24 hours of uploading the e-invoice till filing of the return, you can do the cancellation at the GST common portal where the data is there in your GSTR1 that you can do. And once the return has been filed, in that case, you can do the amendment in subsequent period returns. So that is how the changes can be made to the returns. I'm seeing various questions, but most of these will be taken up in my presentation later on. So at this point of time, I'll request you to curb your curiosity, but at the same time, put in the chat box whatever you want to know, and I'll try and answer all these. So e-invoice can be cancelled within 24 hours using the acknowledgement number or the IRN. And if e-way bill has generated, first you will have to cancel the e-way bill and then cancel the IRN within this 24-hour window. Invoice with the transporter, he can take a physical invoice or even in electronic format. It is okay if the transporter can carry the QR code with IRN, that is good enough. E-way bill continues. Do not be under the false notion that once the invoices come, e-way bill has vanished or it has disappeared or they've stopped e-way bill. E-way bill compliance still remains as of now. You have to continue to generate e-way bills as you were doing now earlier. And but a different thing is that from the e-invoice itself, the e-way bill can be generated. At least part A can be generated. Part B can also be generated if the data relating to that is there in the invoice. Part B you should generate when you are ready for the transport, because your limited time period starts when you start. You've prepared the part B, so your time starts from that moment. So part B should be generated when you are ready for the dispatch of goods. Printed invoice will be looking like this with the QR code. There is no place has been specified that the QR code should be here or there. Wherever there is space, you can print the QR code there. If you want to have your logo, that's not allowed in the invoice, but in the printed or the PDF format, the logo can be there. Now, again, a very important rule, Rule 48 sub Rule 5, it states that every invoice issued by a person to whom e-invoicing applies in any manner other than the manner specified in the said sub rule shall not be treated as an invoice, meaning thereby that an invoice without an IRN will not be an invoice. That means that all consequences will follow as if no invoice has been issued. So when your material is going without any invoice, with a physical invoice, a proper physical invoice is there with the material. But if your e-invoicing is applicable to you and your material is caught by the GST team or the GST inspectors, it will be treated as if there is no invoice, because in your case, e-invoicing is applicable. And obviously there will be delays, there will be issues, some material may be delayed and the client may be having problems. All those issues will be there. So, and penalty will be there. Let me talk about section 122 sub rule, section 1, sorry. Where a taxable person who supplies any goods or services or both without issue of any invoice, he shall be liable to pay a penalty of rupees 10,000 or an amount equivalent to the amount of tax evaded, whichever is higher. So a minimum penalty of 20,000 rupees per invoice will be applicable and subject to a maximum of the amount of tax. I'll say 20,000 because under the two acts, CGST and SGST, 10,000 each. So it will be minimum 20,000 rupees, even if the amount of tax is 50 rupees, 100 rupees, minimum penalty will be 20,000. And the maximum penalty of, if the amount of tax is 5 lakh rupees, the amount of penalty can be up to 5 lakh rupees. So it is very important, if e-invoicing is applicable, please ensure that you generate an e-invoice before dispatch of the material, and the QR code should be there on the physical invoice which you are giving to the transporter. And also very important that the party who is purchasing from you, if you are not issuing an e-invoice, he will not be able to claim ITC. Input tax credit ko to bhul hi jaiye aap us case mein. And it's from your point of view also, you have also to ensure that your vendors are also compliant, and if they are not issuing e-invoice, though e-invoicing is applicable to them, you will not get ITC. So each one has to see for others also. Now coming to digital signature, it says that a tax invoice should contain a signature or digital signature of his authorized representative, and also a QR code like this. And it also states that it will not be required in case of an e-invoice as per the Information Technology Act. That's true, but please understand that if you are issuing a paper invoice with a QR code after issuing the e-invoice, or a PDF invoice with a QR code, in those cases, a physical signature or a digital signature is required. I repeat, even in the case of e-invoice, if you are issuing a paper invoice with a QR code on that, a paper invoice or a PDF invoice to the party, in that case, a physical signature or a digital signature is necessary. It is only in the case where an electronic invoice in this jumbled format, which you are getting from the portal, it is being issued to the party. In that case, an digital signature is not required. So please ensure compliance of this. So either your invoice should contain a physical signature like this, or a digital signature like this, if you are issuing it in a PDF format or a paper format. Even in the case of these B2C invoices, whether we go to these various chains, departmental stores, etc., generally we get these kind of invoices and there are no signature. There is no exemption even for B2C invoices. They should be properly signed. But that's not the case. At many places we see these are not being issued. But for proper compliance, please ensure in your case that even B2C invoices are properly signed, even if they are generated from your various accounting machines or these registers, accounting registers, etc., because a signature is a mandatory requirement. When we talk about returns are being delayed because of some reason, I'm not able to file GST R1 in due time, and I'll file 1 day late, or even GST R3B, I deposit late because I could deposit tax late. Okay, because there is some interest is to be paid, or that's fine. But when we talk about e-invoicing, this will bring your business to a standstill. Business आपका रुक जाएगा, बंद हो जाएगा. 1 तारीख को, 1 अप्रैल को आप April Fool बन जाएंगे if you are not ready for e-invoicing. And you will not be able to answer to your top bosses, to your directors, to your top management, that because of something, because of some issue, e-invoice is not being generated. And so for the next 10 days or 15 days, let us stop the dispatches. Or somebody may say, okay, let us keep on transporting the material. E-invoices we will generate later. Please never do that. Because such an invoice is just like a piece of paper, scrap. Just throw it in the dustbin. If you issue such an invoice, it will not be a proper invoice. And if material is caught, all the penalties and all the consequences will follow, as if no invoice has been issued in this case. So please ensure that you are ready with this in e-invoicing sufficiently in advance. I want to say sufficiently in advance. It is already 16th of March, and we have very less time, just 2 weeks in total. And please ensure you are ready with that. And sometime you will take for testing, etc. also. So please do it right away. Otherwise, there will be a problem. Yes, I'm speaking in English only. Just a few jumlas and some proverbs I have to, I can't help, cannot suppress that. Otherwise, I'm speaking in English. I know many people are there from South and other states where they do not understand a lot of Hindi. So I'm talking in English in general. So knowing your vendor is also very important, because if he's supposed to issue e-invoices to you, please ensure that he issues invoices. So turnover-wise bifurcation of vendors is also required. How to know that? Let us see. You can go at the government portal, and there you can punch in the GSTIN of the vendor, give the CAPTCHA and go, and here you will get the status that you are enabled for e-invoicing. So if your party is enabled for e-invoicing, you should ensure that you receive proper e-invoices from him. From here, you can check one by one from your vendors, or there's another way, I'll also tell you that. And even if e-invoice enablement status is not enabled, there is a facility to enable yourself or the vendors also. You can go at the GST e-invoice portal. There you can punch it. This is the address of the portal, invoice1.gst.gov.in. Then go to the menu registration, and then e-invoice enablement. Here you punch in the GSTIN, give the CAPTCHA, and then you can give the details. If because of some reason the government has not already enabled you, then you can go at this portal, go to this link and enable yourself. And here you will have to give an undertaking that I agree that for the PAN of my company of the registered GSTINs, the aggregate turnover is more than 20 crores, and hence I may be enabled for e-invoicing. And this is the registration portal. And here it says that e-invoice options are not enabled for this GSTIN. Then also at the portal, the government is also giving this very good facility of an Excel file which is being updated from time to time, where the list of IRN generating assessees or taxpayers is being provided. So you can also check from this list. Even our company checks it from this list. So you can also use this list, which is available at the portal in Excel format, and check your vendors. This is the link, and you have to go to search and GSTINs generating IRN. Now, various operational issues. You have to decide these things also in advance. Whether, though I understand e-invoicing is applicable to me, I'll upload the data at the portal of the e-invoice portal. But what will be the format of invoice to the buyer? Whether physical invoice should be issued or e-invoice should be issued. There is an option. You can either issue a physical invoice or an e-invoice or both. The government does not stop you from doing that. And if a physical invoice is to be issued, the number of copies required, as of now in the case of goods, there are 3 copies. In the case of services, there are 2 copies. But now you have to decide. Or sometimes we keep extra for the stores, extra for the accounts. So number of copies depends on your own requirements, the requirements of government. But as of now, the government has no requirement because the data is being uploaded in the government portal. So the physical invoices, number of copies depends on your requirement, depends on the requirement of your buyer. So you have to decide that also. Then also you have to decide whether a same series is to continue for B2B and B2C invoices. So the government does not mandate that. The government does not say that a physical invoice and e-invoice series should be different, or B2B and B2C series should be different. But for control purposes, I would suggest, if possible, have a separate series so that you know that for this series, invoice will not be generated. For the other series, invoice will be generated, and the IRN should be stored in the accounts. And signing, as I told you, it has to be digitally signed or physically signed if a physical or a PDF copy is being issued. And we need to ensure that suitable processes and systems are in place for compliance. Necessary changes in IT infrastructure are required. Billing, whether our billing is centralized or decentralized. So the changes are to be done, whether from the centralized system it's possible. If it is decentralized, I may have to be doing all these changes at several places. If we have multiple invoice types, there is extra effort on the part of the partner who is doing invoicing on your behalf. In HSN codes, all validation is also there, that 4, 6, or 8 digits should be there in the case of goods, and in the case of services, 4, 5, 6 digits should be there. Even you have to ensure that in most of the accounting packages, etc., in the masters of the buyers and the sellers, etc., the PIN code field is there. But many times it's not a mandatory field and we are not filling it. But that's an important field, that's a mandatory field. And so please ensure that this data is also available with you. I think even in the case of e-waybill, it was required. So most of you must be having. Even if you now are not having, please ensure that this is properly filled. Now, many issues, because when system is of physical invoicing, we were doing things as per our convenience. But now you cannot issue invoices in advance. E-invoices you cannot issue in advance. There are some holidays, etc. Today I'll make invoices for the next date, the day after that, etc. That's not possible. Physically you can make, but upload of the data, whenever you do it, you have to do that. So if you are making an invoice today, that is the 16th of March, and you are uploading at the portal, it will happen on the 16th of March. E-invoice will also be of the 16th of March. It will not be of, let's say 20th of March if you want that. So that is a change and you have to plan accordingly. Theoretically, sometimes there may be problems on the website and e-invoice might not be there. But we, in the last 2 years, we have seen very few instances where some lines were down or some problems were there. Some update was there at the portal. So even just in those cases, but otherwise problems have not been there, and it has been a smooth process. And as I said, in the case of holidays, you cannot, either you issue the invoice on the same day or earlier. It cannot happen that you are doing it for advance. Invoice cannot be uploaded for a future date. And another case now, to people whom e-invoicing is already applicable, or if I talk about cases of 20 to 50 crores to whom e-invoicing will be applicable next year, that is 22-23 onwards. Let's talk about the next March 2023. Their invoices of 31st March, you are issuing on 31st of March physical invoices, and you continue to make invoices till 10th of April. I think that's a normal process, because these, particularly the sales people, want to meet the targets, etc. So they keep on continuing to issue invoices till some 7th or 10th of the next month. That will now not be possible. There will be issues in finalization and balance sheet finalization, because which will be the correct date. Because if it is issued on 10th of April, so whether it will pertain to March, will it pertain to the previous year or the next year? All these issues will come. So please be careful. In records, whether we will continue to keep physical invoices or e-invoices or both, you have to decide that. Then later on, other things will also come. Phased rollout is there. Mobile-based app will also come, through which e-invoices will be generated. And with this electronic data with the government, they can do anything with it. All these analysis, etc. Now all these fake invoices being caught day in, day out. We're reading these news. Department is day in, day out coming with all these press releases, etc. they are able to analyze all this data. Just to give you a very simple example, some people who are generating e-way bill or e-invoice late in the night, after 12 a.m., midnight ke baad, even that data is being accumulated. That why some people are generating e-way bill and e-invoices so late in the night, never in the day. Something fishy might be there. Just a very small example, but they have various parameters through which they are doing this advanced analytics. Second portal, third portal, they will come in due course, and there will be improvements in validations and verifications to control fraudulent invoices, as I told. And sooner or later, they'll be coming out with even invoices for B2C invoices also. Now, many of you must be from the business, but some practicing chartered accountants may also be there. And they might think this is something pertaining to the business. They have to take care of this. What do I do with that? What is in it for me? But I think you are a very important part of the business. And since the turnover criteria has now been lowered, you have to ensure that proper compliance is done by your clients. And bigger corporates are more organized. But when we talk about smaller corporates having turnover from 20 to 50 crores, also they are also smaller, medium. They don't have separate departments like IT department, accounts department, admin department. Maybe a few people may be there in the company or the entity, and they may not be able to do all these things properly. So proper guidance from you is necessary. And these kind of people are not that organized. They need more support. So you need to understand all these nuances of e-invoicing, help them out. And I think it will be a win-win situation because company will have the expert to take care of his obligations. Because even one case where a proper invoice should be issued and it is not issued, there's a minimum penalty of 20,000 rupees of an invoice, subject to a maximum of the amount of tax. And from the point of view of the professional, it is a new opportunity. So I think it's a win-win situation for both of you. So all these things are to be done: conversion of invoice data in JSON format, upload of data at the portal, download of IRN of the QR code, saving QR code and the IRN in the ERP, and generation of invoice with QR code. All these things have to be done. And obviously the printing of the PDF or the paper invoice. So what steps have to be done? What is to be done before we get a sound sleep? So check your eligibility for e-invoicing, whether I'm eligible or not. Even if you are doing only tax-free supplies, exempt supplies, then e-invoicing is not for you, even if the limit is exceeding 10 crores. So that is there. Then check whether you are enabled for it at the portal or not. I just showed you how you can check that. If you are not enabled, but invoicing is applicable to you, then you have to register for it. I also showed you there is an option of registering at the portal. Then see whether your accounting or the ERP package gives you an option for invoice or not. Check whether all the business scenarios of the business are covered. It seems very simple actually. Invoicing, or for that matter, anything seems very simple when you see on the surface of the thing. But when you dive down, then you see what all is there, what all issues, what all problems are there. Even for different type of invoices, because to dealers, different type of invoices may be issued. B2C are different invoices. For different types of businesses, different types of dealers, different invoices may be there. Formats may be different. So all these things have to be taken into account because changes have to be made in the invoice also. Invoice, probably in the invoice, there is no space for the QR code. So you have to redesign the invoice. These things, I think, initially we don't even think of those. But when we actually test the waters, then all these issues come. So whether all the business scenarios are covered or not, if not, look for alternative solutions. End-to-end integration solutions are available, like we at Webtel are providing end-to-end integration solutions, not only for Busy and Tally, but also for various ERP packages or homegrown ERPs also. we are providing end-to-end integration solutions, whereby at the click of a button, you are able to generate an invoice. And even rights and privileges need to be defined. You cannot give the option of canceling the invoice to anybody. The accountant may not understand and he may delete the invoice. What will happen? And you will not even be aware about that unless and until you check at the reports are there. The MIS has to be seen for that case. So all these rights and privileges also need to be defined. An existing invoice format may need to be redesigned, as I told you, due to printing of IRN and the QR code. So that's important. And if the number of formats are more, so this exercise is to be done for each one of them. And you have to decide how the invoice is to be issued, electronic format, physical format, etc. And Webtel is giving all these compliance solutions for the e-waybill and now for the e-invoice also. And you may be having the ERP or the accounting package, but please ensure that you have the latest version of the same, or at least the version which helps you in electronic invoicing or e-invoicing. Because as in the case of Tally, if you don't have Tally Prime, if you have not upgraded your subscription, in that case, you will not be able to generate e-invoicing. Or if the yearly subscription update of Busy has not been done, or your ERP upgradation has not been done for invoicing, then you will not be able to generate invoices from your existing packages. And you also have to weigh, you have to see the cost factor also, because in the existing ERP, the cost may be very huge, but there are integration solutions, end-to-end integration solutions, whereby we can provide plugins, whereby this e-invoicing process can become very simple. And you may have to spend only a fraction of the cost, which you may have to pay to your ERP vendor. Or in case of your homegrown ERP, that may not be that easy, because we here are doing e-invoicing for so many of our customers, big customers, small customers, medium customers all over the country. Even for Saudi Arabia, we are doing e-invoicing. So we have an experienced a technical team. We have good support on that. And we take a very less time in making you ready for invoicing. So all these things have to be weighed in mind, and then you can go for the actual solution. I'll stop here, and I think now it is time to take some queries. And already in the chat box, I think there are many queries. I'll one by one, I'll take these queries. And if there are any more queries, you can ask on the chat box. There's a question I'll take from the back to the forward. So there's a query in the case of export invoice, the GSTN, and rightly he's asked that even in the case of exports, invoice is mandatory, but he does not have the GSTN. In that case, URD is to be written, unregistered dealer, that has to be written. So in the case of export, URD, or in the case of unregistered buyer, a businessman, URD is to be written. Then there's a question, is it mandatory to generate invoice within 3 days from the date of? No, there is no such mandate. You can generate an invoice. You can generate your invoice on the 1st of January, and you can generate invoice on the 31st of March or 16th of March. There is no problem with that, but it should be generated well in time before the dispatch of material. So please ensure that. If all the invoices are B2C, then e-invoicing is not applicable to you. No need to register. If there's any mistake in the invoice, can we modify the e-invoice? There is no option of modification of the invoice. As I told you, it can be only cancelled and a fresh invoice can be issued. And the fresh invoice should have a separate number, because the same IRN cannot be generated. Same invoice number cannot be used for generating in another invoice. And I'll take up the other questions also. And our team is there, and Akash can provide on the screen the phone numbers, the contact details of the persons who can help you in these initiatives. We will be too glad to help you to provide any small support or an end-to-end integration. We can provide those information to you. Can we generate e-invoice without e-way bill details? You can generate e-invoice, but part A information has to be there. Part B can be done later on, so that's possible. Then there's a question. Our turnover is around 50 crores and we are into agri products. Is e-invoice applicable on us? If all the products are there which are exempt in the e-invoice, in that case, you are exempt from this requirement. But even if some items are there which are taxable, in that case, e-invoicing, you will have to register for that, and you will have to issue e-invoice in those cases only where items are taxable. Debit and credit notes which are issued, even they have to be issued as e-invoice. And the login and the password, if you have a login of e-way bill, which most of us have, in that case, the same login password will help you on the e-invoice portal also. No particular precautions to be taken in the case of export invoice. The normal things that you do while making an export invoice have to be taken care of here also. Only the thing that even the QR code should be there, because if e-invoicing is applicable, this e-invoicing is applicable for exports also. Testing can be done at the sandbox, which is provided at the testing portal. So, and you can give your phone numbers or email ID, or alternatively contact at this information. These phone numbers which are being provided on the screen, you can write to us, you can call us, and our team will be helpful to you. I think I've taken most of the questions. If there are more questions, please write in the chat box.
Thank you. Lastly,
sir.
Yeah.
Some questions by the participants. They're raising their hands.
Okay, you can unmute them.
Yes, sir. Mr. Vinod, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Mr. Vinod, you can unmute yourself. You've been enabled.
Loudspeaker band karo.
Or you can unmute the next person.
Mr. Gokul, please unmute yourself. Mr. Gokul.
There seems to be some problem. Let me take the queries on the chat box first.
Yes.
Can we make backdated bills? Yes, you can make, but the actual invoice invoice will be of current date only. It cannot be of back date. Then there's a question for new business: is invoice applicable? No, for a new business, invoice is not applicable because we have to see the turnover of the previous year. So if the business is started in the next year, or even in the current year, for some months the business is there and the turnover is less than 20 crores, then it will be not applicable in the next year. And even in the current year, like the next year, that is 22-23, it's a new business and the turnover exceeds 20 crores. Even in that case, invoicing will be applicable from the next year.
सर कई लोग जो है IRN के निकालने के बाद भी सिग्नेचर मांगते हैं सर क्लाइंट से, और कई लोग नहीं मांगते हैं, तो एक्चुअल रूल क्या है सर? साइन करके देना पड़ेगा सर इनवॉइस को
मैंने
IRN पोर्टल?
मैंने ये बीच में अगर आपने शायद मिस किया होगा, मैंने क्लियर किया था कि अगर हम इनवॉइस इशू करेंगे जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक फॉर्मेट है,
जी सर,
तो उस केस में तो सिग्नेचर की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है। गवर्नमेंट कहती है, वहां भी मेरे अपने कंसर्न्स हैं, क्योंकि आपका डिजिटल सिग्नेचर तो नहीं गया है, गवर्नमेंट का आ रहा है, तो चलिए एक बार उस बात को भी मान लेते हैं। लेकिन अगर आपके PDF इनवॉइस है या फिजिकल इनवॉइस आप इशू कर रहे हैं जिसपे आपका QR कोड आ रहा है, उस पे आपके सिग्नेचर होने चाहिए, या तो फिजिकल सिग्नेचर होने चाहिए या डिजिटल सिग्नेचर होने चाहिए। So I'll repeat for the benefit of the other audience also in English that if you are issuing a physical invoice or a PDF invoice with the QR code, in the case of an e-invoice, there a physical signature or a digital signature is mandatory. Exemption is given by the government only in cases where you are issuing the e-invoice in the electronic, in the jumbled format to your party. In other cases, a signature is necessary. I think I'm clear on that.
yes.
Next question.
Anything? Hello, everyone can have any questions? Please raise their hand. So can I unmute you?
Then there's another question: is there an exemption for courier business from e-invoicing? No, there is no exemption for courier business. Only the specified businesses, as I told you about, insurance companies, banking companies, transportation sector, aviation sector, multiplexes, etc. All these kind of businesses are exempt.
Sir, invoice should be generated on the same day?
Not necessary. Not necessary. As I told you, even if you are making an invoice on the 31st of December or 1st of January, you can issue in January, February, even March. No issues with that. But it should be issued before dispatch of material. From the YouTube session also, if there are any queries, please take those.
Just a minute, sir. Just a minute.
If you're sending material for job work, there also invoice is not necessary, not required. And for B2C, let me clarify that even if you want to generate invoice, you cannot generate. Presently, invoicing is allowed only for B2B invoices. Yes.
Answer, there are no question at YouTube.
So I think we have covered most of the things. And for further information, for further queries, you please note down these email ID and the mobile number, and you can get in touch with us. We'll try to help you out in whatever way we can. And I'll reiterate that we have end-to-end solutions for Tally, Busy, and even various, obviously for SAP, etc., the bigger accounting, ERP packages, etc., the proper integration facilities, end-to-end integration is there. Even for homegrown ERPs and for other accounting packages, we are all providing all these facilities. We are a registered GSP, GST Suvidha provider, whereby we upload the various returns, etc., and we provide the channel for uploading the various returns or helping in e-waybill integration or invoice or for filing the returns, etc. All these facilities are being offered by us. So whether it is GST compliances, whether it is e-waybill, whether it is invoicing, all these services under one umbrella we are providing, and we can help you out definitely. And please ensure whether you take our help or not, that's not important. Please ensure that you are ready well in advance. At least 4 or 5 days you should get for testing minimum. And on the 1st of April, you should be ready. It should not be that your business comes to a standstill. With that, I would thank you so much for joining this session. And I think it was a very interactive session and we had lots of queries. And if need be, we'll have similar sessions. and try for physical seminars also wherever possible, so that we can interact with you and help you out in this e-invoicing initiative of the Government of India. Thank you so much.